concept of applying AI to financial markets and why it's important. First of all, the whole world is moving in the direction of using AI. What that means, we're going to just define in a second. But trying to find some way to isolate patterns into something that's actionable, a way that you can trade on them, and a way that you can sort of use the signal to your benefit while you're involved in the financial markets, right? And there's a couple different ways. People are using large language models to try to figure out something approximate to sentiment and predict maybe what might come out, in terms of market sentiment. What we do here at Metafide mostly, we do have a LLM play, and it helps with guidance and strategy, but the actionable piece that we do is from neural networks, specifically temporal convolutional neural networks, recurrent neural networks, convolutional neural networks. And we use a bunch of time series data in, and then we push that through a bunch of models, long short-term memory, gated recurrent units, convolutional long short-term. We use a bunch of different models, and then they're all competing to be the most accurate at predicting the next interval. So if you have a time series of ticks in a trade that comes through, what is the most likely trade that's going to come through next, given all that you can feed it into the model? And those things compete. And we have some specific AI that we've written also that sits on top of those models and chooses the model that's most likely to perform best in the next iteration. And I'm not going to go into too much detail on that because that's our secret sauce, but it works really well. It's very accurate, and it allows us to arbitrage the market in such a way so that we seem to be the only ones out there doing it. I imagine people start to catch up, in the next couple of years here, but we have a really great way to go about it. And essentially, if you're applying that to the market and you can outperform some of the other models, then you can predict a little bit higher of a high and a little bit lower of a low and get more precise on finding the space between the way the market oscillates, and you can sort of trade in there much better. And it doesn't necessarily need to be intrasecond or high frequency. Sometimes you're looking at a few minutes, and sometimes you're trying to figure out like what the most likely interval for the yield is going to be. But you apply that to the process over and over again, and you get these compounding yields that outperform other ways of doing it, right? And so everybody's in this arms race right now in finance to do something sort of similar to either figure out the market direction, sentiment, technical patterns, and then extract the most yield from that to their benefit. Pretty simple. Everybody gets that. But the way we look at it too, what's in the market and the signal you get from the market is either an open bid where somebody's saying, I'm going to buy or sell, at this point. And then, so you have an offer, an ask, and then a bid. And so you want to look at what the asks are and then see what the bid patterns look like and understand how far of a gap that is, where it's likely to intersect, because when a bid meets an ask, that's when you have a sale, especially in an efficient market. And there's a bunch of things that go on with crypto that don't necessarily happen as on Wall Street in the equities markets or the derivatives markets, where crypto right now is filled with these ways of decoying positions. So people open up fake positions. The market will chase them. They'll take them off the market. They'll withdraw them, essentially manipulating the market up or down. That would probably get you an orange jumpsuit if you did it in equities markets. But right now, it seems to be perfectly acceptable in the crypto markets. So it's more of a less rules around what's going on, and it opens the door for a lot of market manipulation. So trying to figure out what's real and what's not is another layer to this that isn't necessarily supposed to exist. It does, and they hide it well in the Wall Street world. But you're dealing with that now. The signal that you get are those things. So the prelude to a trade in those types of conditions are those bids and asks, right? So you're sort of projecting like this is where I'll meet you to buy, this is where I'll meet you to sell, and and that's sort of what somebody has to take to get things in the market. What we do here, were you going to say something, Serge?
Nope. That's
Okay,
just
yeah.
nothing.
So what we do here is we combine a signal that exists prior to that. So alpha, if you will. So you've heard the term alpha. In this case, it's true alpha. We're using people and the way they view the market to understand if they think things are too high or too low, and without paying to do it. And because they don't have to pay to do it, they're more likely to give it to you, there's less of a cost. Now, it also means in many of the cases, the signal's not quite as good because if you don't have to put your money up, it it doesn't cost you as much to do it. And some people are going to treat that as a throwaway, right? Like, oh, whatever, I'm just gaming, I'm just playing games here. But some people are really good at it, and some people like to win. So some people are doing it not for just money, but for pride and for recognition. Some people are doing it to test themselves at how good they are at reading the market. And what we've done is open up another layer that exists prior to things getting onto the market, where it's a way to source a signal that isn't yet present. And when you look at kind of why that works, um, it gives you a signal that somebody doesn't essentially have to tie up a bunch of capital to do. So from that big pool of signal that we have, we whittle it down and understand who's really performing really well, who tends to do really well by not identifying them, but paying attention to the wallets that are actually performing the transactions. And we can say, okay, this group of well-performing traders outperforms the market recently at this clip. So we could say with a certain degree of confidence that we can predict which way the next part of the market's going to go from that signal. And when you bump it up against all these competing AI models, you combine the two, our reach shows that we routinely outperform raw AI and other models by 23% right now. And we use that signal as a way to transact our own treasury, which the game's surge is going to be tied into. And then we're going to be able to offer products to be able to share that back with other folks. But most importantly, what we do is to put our money where our mouth is. When this token launches every 90 days, we are going to take 25% of our gains and then turn around, buy our token off the market and burn it to prove that that's how much the people signal was worth. So there'll be a running record of what's going on. And obviously that deflates the token supply, which means when you deflate the token supply, you make it more scarce, essentially less FIDE out there to transact. And by doing it, it doesn't just drive the value of the token up, right? What it also does, it means you have to think more and come up with better and more strategies to be, because if you want to acquire an asset that's increasing in value and decreasing in supply, you have to come up with more, better, and clever ways to do it. So it's a self-improving system as it goes. And that's the first time in public we've ever actually explained the token mechanism that works and why it works, right? That's that's there not just for the benefit of our community, but that's also out there to protect ourselves so that when people come and say it's speculation. No, no, no. This is a proof of how much the people signal combined with AI is worth. And we're part of this ongoing global experiment to show people and prove to them people plus AI can give you a yield.